Hollywood's silver screen is often a carefully crafted illusion, but behind the magic, a clandestine operation can sometimes unfold. This is the world of reshoots, a practice that, while common, can escalate into a full-blown, secret filming of an entirely new movie. When a studio decides to embark on such a monumental undertaking, it's rarely a sign of confidence. Instead, it often signals a crisis, a desperate attempt to salvage an investment that is teetering on the brink of disaster. The question then becomes, what prompts a studio to quietly, and expensively, reshoot a significant portion, or even the entirety, of a film? This documentary delves into the rarely seen mechanics and explosive controversies surrounding these high-stakes gambles, exploring the pressures, the personalities, and the potential scandals that can erupt when a studio decides to rewrite a movie mid-flight. We will uncover the hidden reasons why beloved blockbusters and ambitious projects alike have been forced back into production, often under a veil of secrecy, leading to dramatic shifts in narrative, character, and ultimately, the fate of the film itself. The landscape of filmmaking, particularly within the hallowed halls of Hollywood, is a complex ecosystem where artistic vision often collides with commercial imperatives. While the final product gracing the silver screen appears polished and definitive, the journey to its creation is frequently a labyrinthine process, fraught with challenges and unexpected turns. Among the most significant of these is the practice of reshoots, a widely accepted, albeit costly, aspect of film production. However, there exists a more extreme, and often scandal-inducing, manifestation of this practice, the quiet, extensive filming of a nearly entirely new movie, sometimes referred to as a secret remake or a reshoot on steroids. This phenomenon is not merely a minor course correction, it represents a profound crisis in the making of a film, a desperate measure taken when the original vision or execution is deemed irredeemably flawed, threatening a substantial financial investment. The history of Hollywood is punctuated with instances where initial productions faltered, necessitating drastic interventions. Early cinema, while less reliant on the massive budgets of today, still saw studios grappling with audience reception and narrative coherence. However, the scale and secrecy associated with modern large-scale reshoots are largely a product of the latter half of the 20th century and the dawn of the 21st. As filmmaking became an industry capable of generating billions of dollars, the stakes for each individual project escalated dramatically. The studio system, with its powerful executives and financial backers, developed an increasingly keen eye on marketability, audience appeal, and the bottom line. The entities most directly involved in these clandestine operations are the major Hollywood studios. These are the corporations that finance, market, and distribute films, wielding immense power over every stage of production. Executives within these studios, often driven by quarterly earnings reports and shareholder expectations, are the ultimate arbiters of a film's fate. When a project under their purview begins to show signs of distress, be it through disastrous test screenings, negative buzz from early marketing, or internal dissatisfaction with the creative output, they are the ones who initiate the costly and often controversial decision to reshoot. Behind the scenes, a cast of key players emerges during these critical junctures. Directors, the original creative visionaries, often find themselves in a precarious position. Their authority can be challenged, their artistic integrity questioned, and their creative control significantly diminished as studio demands dictate changes. In some cases, directors may be replaced entirely, brought in to salvage a project they had no hand in starting. Producers, tasked with managing the logistical and financial complexities of filmmaking, bear the brunt of orchestrating these massive undertakings, often working under immense pressure to deliver a revised film within tight deadlines and exorbitant budgets. Screenwriters are frequently brought back to rewrite significant portions of the script, sometimes drastically altering plotlines, character arcs, and thematic elements. The actors, too, find themselves in a whirlwind, often required to return to set for extended periods, sometimes months after principal photography has concluded, to re-record scenes or film entirely new sequences. The events that precede these dramatic reshoots are diverse and often indicative of underlying problems within the production. Test screenings, a crucial feedback mechanism for studios, can be a harbinger of doom. If audiences react poorly to a cut of the film, finding it confusing, boring, or lacking in emotional resonance, studios will often scramble to address the perceived weaknesses. Marketing campaigns can also reveal critical flaws. If trailers fail to capture the intended essence of the film or generate a lukewarm response, it signals a disconnect between the studio's vision and the audience's expectations. Furthermore, internal reviews by studio executives can uncover narrative inconsistencies, pacing issues, or a lack of compelling drama. Sometimes, the original creative team may simply hit a wall, unable to resolve creative differences or achieve the desired outcome, leading to a stalemate that necessitates external intervention. The immense pressure to deliver a franchise starter, a critical darling, or a box office smash can amplify these anxieties, pushing studios to take extreme measures to course-correct. This history of high-stakes decision-making, driven by financial risk and the pursuit of commercial success, sets the stage for the often secretive and tumultuous world of extensive film reshoots. The decision to embark on a costly and often secretive reshoot process is rarely made lightly. It is a high-stakes gamble undertaken by film studios when the initial investment in a movie appears to be heading towards a significant financial loss or critical failure. This intervention, often masked from the public eye until well after its completion, can dramatically reshape a film, sometimes for the better, but often at the expense of the original creative vision. The genesis of such a decision can be traced back to several critical points in the filmmaking lifecycle, each serving as a potential alarm bell for studio executives. One of the earliest and most potent indicators of trouble lies in the realm of test screenings. These are private showings of an early cut of the film to select, often demographically targeted, audiences. The feedback gathered from these screenings is meticulously analyzed. Questionnaires are distributed, and focus groups are held to gauge audience reactions to plot points, character development, pacing, and overall enjoyment. If the results are overwhelmingly negative, if audiences express confusion, boredom, a lack of emotional connection, or outright dislike, the studio is presented with undeniable evidence that the film, in its current form, is unlikely to succeed. This data becomes the bedrock upon which the decision to reshoot is built. For instance, a film might be perceived as too slow, leading to a demand for more action sequences. Or a protagonist might be found to be unsympathetic, necessitating a rewrite of their motivations and actions. Following closely on the heels of test screenings are the marketing campaigns. Trailers, posters, and early promotional materials are designed to generate buzz and convey the essence of the film to the wider public. If these initial marketing efforts fail to resonate, if they elicit a lukewarm response or, worse, negative reactions, it signals a fundamental disconnect. The trailers might not accurately represent the film's tone, or they might fail to highlight its most compelling elements. This can indicate that the film's core appeal, as perceived by the studio, is not aligning with audience expectations. In such scenarios, studios may opt for reshoots to create new footage that can be incorporated into more effective marketing materials, or to fundamentally alter the film to better suit the initial marketing promise. The pressure to create a marketable product, one that can attract a significant audience, often trumps artistic fidelity when the initial attempts fall flat. Internal reviews by studio executives and their appointed creative executives also play a crucial role. These individuals, tasked with overseeing the project's progress, meticulously scrutinize every aspect of the film, from the script and dailies to the rough cuts. They are looking for narrative coherence, compelling character arcs, effective pacing, and a strong thematic through line. If inconsistencies are identified, if a plot point feels underdeveloped, or if the film lacks the emotional punch that was envisioned, these internal critiques can trigger a red flag. Sometimes, the original creative team might simply be unable to overcome creative differences or achieve the desired artistic outcome, leading to a stalemate. In these situations, the studio, bearing the financial risk, may decide to bring in new talent to steer the project towards a more commercially viable direction. The pressure to deliver a successful film is amplified when the project is intended to be a franchise starter or a high-profile tentpole release. The potential for sequels, merchandise, and theme park attractions means that the stakes are astronomically high. A perceived failure in the initial installment can have ripple effects, jeopardizing an entire cinematic universe. This immense pressure can lead studios to be more aggressive in their pursuit of reshoots, even if the evidence of underlying problems is less clear-cut. The fear of missing out on a lucrative franchise can drive decisions that might seem excessive to external observers. Furthermore, the very nature of contemporary filmmaking, with its intricate visual effects, complex editing processes, and reliance on digital technology, can also necessitate reshoots. Sometimes, during the post-production phase, it becomes apparent that certain visual effects sequences are not working as intended, or that the digital integration of elements is flawed. In such cases, filming new material that can be seamlessly integrated into the existing digital framework becomes a necessity. This is particularly true for films heavily reliant on CGI, where technical challenges can emerge late in the process. The decision to reshoot is also influenced by the competitive landscape. In a crowded marketplace, studios are constantly vying for audience attention. If a competitor releases a similar film or a film that captures the public imagination in a way that the current project fails to, it can spur a studio to reevaluate its own offering. The desire to stand out, to offer something fresh and exciting, can lead to a scramble to make last-minute changes through reshoots, aiming to imbue the film with a renewed sense of urgency or appeal. The process of identifying the need for reshoots is therefore a multifaceted one, involving a confluence of data from test screenings, marketing reactions, internal assessments, and market pressures. It is a complex interplay of creative assessment and financial pragmatism, where the ultimate goal is to salvage an investment and ensure a film's commercial viability. When these warning signs become too significant to ignore, the wheels of the reshoot machine begin to turn, often under a veil of secrecy, setting the stage for a dramatic and often contentious transformation of the original cinematic endeavor. The initial creative spark, however brilliant, can be significantly altered, or even extinguished, in the studio's earnest pursuit of a hit. This is where the true battle for a film's soul often begins, a battle fought not on set with cameras rolling for the first time, but in boardrooms and editing suites, with the specter of financial ruin looming large. The evidence, gathered from a variety of sources, paints a clear picture: a film is not meeting expectations, and radical intervention is deemed necessary. The practice of extensive reshoots, while often unseen by the public eye, carries profound implications for the filmmaking process and the industry as a whole. At its core, it signifies a divergence between initial artistic vision and perceived market demand. When studios opt for significant refilming, it suggests a fundamental disconnect has been identified, one that threatens the financial viability of a project. This is particularly true for tentpole films, where the investment is immense and the expectation of a return is paramount. The potential for franchise building, merchandise, and even theme park attractions means that a perceived misstep in the initial installment can have catastrophic ripple effects, jeopardizing an entire cinematic universe. The specter of a failed franchise starter can drive studios to be aggressive, even if the evidence of underlying problems is not always immediately apparent. Furthermore, the complexity of modern filmmaking itself can necessitate reshoots. The intricate nature of visual effects, the nuances of digital editing, and the reliance on cutting-edge technology can reveal flaws late in the post-production process. Sequences that were envisioned on paper may not translate effectively to the screen, or digital elements might not integrate seamlessly. In such scenarios, filming new material becomes a practical necessity, especially for films heavily dependent on CGI. The ability to digitally integrate new shots into existing footage offers a degree of flexibility, but it also highlights the inherent risks associated with ambitious technological undertakings. The competitive landscape also plays a significant role. In a crowded marketplace, studios are perpetually seeking to capture audience attention. If a competitor releases a film that resonates powerfully with the public, or if a similar project emerges and garners significant buzz, it can trigger a re-evaluation of a studio's own offering. The desire to stand out, to present something fresh and compelling, can lead to last-minute changes through reshoots, aiming to inject a renewed sense of urgency or appeal into the film. However, this reliance on reshoots is not without its controversies. Critics argue that it can lead to a dilution of the original director's vision, with studio executives imposing their will and shaping the film into something more palatable, but less artistically pure. This can result in a Frankenstein's monster of a film, stitched together from disparate creative impulses. There's also the concern that it fosters a culture of indecision and risk aversion, where initial creative risks are quickly abandoned in favor of safer, more commercially driven choices. The financial implications are also considerable. Reshoots are notoriously expensive, often adding millions to a film's budget, which can then be passed on to the consumer through ticket prices or streaming subscriptions. The question of who ultimately benefits from this costly process, the filmmakers, the audience, or simply the studio bottom line, remains a subject of ongoing debate within the industry. The practice of extensive reshoots, often conducted quietly by studios, reveals a complex interplay between artistic intent and commercial imperative in filmmaking. At its heart, this phenomenon signifies a critical juncture where a film's initial creative direction is deemed insufficient to meet market expectations, particularly for high-stakes, tentpole releases. The immense financial investment in such projects, coupled with the ambition to build lucrative franchises, can drive studios to aggressively alter a film if it appears poised for failure, even if the underlying issues are not immediately obvious. Beyond market pressures, the inherent complexities of modern cinema, especially those heavily reliant on visual effects and digital technology, can also necessitate reshoots. Post-production can expose unforeseen flaws in how envisioned sequences translate to the screen, or difficulties integrating digital elements. This makes acquiring new footage a practical, albeit costly, solution. Furthermore, the competitive nature of the film industry compels studios to constantly seek ways to capture audience attention, leading to last-minute adjustments through reshoots to inject fresh appeal or urgency if a competitor's release proves particularly impactful. However, this reliance on reshoots is fraught with controversy. Critics contend that it often dilutes the original director's vision, as studio executives steer the film towards more commercially safe, yet artistically compromised, territory. This can result in a disjointed final product. The financial burden is also significant, with reshoots frequently adding millions to a film's budget. The ultimate beneficiaries of this costly process, filmmakers, audiences, or solely the studio's bottom line, remain a persistent point of contention. The quiet recalibration of a film through reshoots underscores a fundamental tension in Hollywood, the constant negotiation between creative ambition and the relentless demand for commercial success.